Hello everyone, in Unit 2 we are going to be discussing fractions and mixed numbers. The very first topic you're going to need to know is how to simplify a fraction. Simplifying fractions is another way of saying reducing a fraction. The easiest way I think to go about it is to find a number that both the numerator and the denominator can be divided by and be divided by evenly. So look at this example. They've taken the fraction 4/8 and they're like, well, it's even, so we could divide both the numerator and denominator by 2, which reduces it down into 2/4. And then you can take 2/4 and divide both the numerator and denominator by 2, which gives you 1/2. Now, could you have started with 4/8 and divided both the numerator and denominator by 4? Of course you could. It would have saved you some time, but it still gets you the same answer of 1/2. So as long as you can find a good starting point to divide both the numerator and denominator, as long as you divide as far as you can go, you will then arrive at your simplified fraction. Now, if you do have one of those TI-30 or TI-34 calculators, you can always check your answer by using the fraction key. So if I was going to type this into my TI-30 or TI-34 calculator, I would hit 4. And then there's this key at the top. It looks like A, B over C. This is your fraction key. And then if you hit 4, that key there, and then 8, and then hit your equal button, which is at the bottom right-hand corner, it will give you a reduced fraction. So you can always use your calculator to check your reducing fractions. So let's look at some examples. Take the fraction 8/10. If I wanted to reduce 8/10, it's both even, so I could start by dividing them both by 2, which is going to give me 4/5. And then you just want to check to see, is there anything I could divide 4/5 by evenly? And the answer would be no. So 4/5 would be my simplified fraction. Again, it doesn't really matter your starting point as long as you get to the final answer. You could start by dividing these both by 2. I could look for a bit of a larger number, so in this case, they're both divisible by 6. So if I do 24 divided by 6, which would be 4, and then I do 30 divided by 6, which is going to give me 5. So 4/5 would also be my simplified fraction in this case. Now let's look at what this question's asking. It says, write each of the following as an equivalent fraction with the given denominator. So what it's asking you to do is take the fraction 4/5, and what if you wanted to write it as a fraction with the denominator of 25? Now, if you are dividing both of these by the same number to build a new fraction, what we're doing is asking ourselves, what am I multiplying 5 by to get to 25? Well, 5 times 5 gives me 25. Whatever you multiply the denominator by, you need to do the same to the numerator to build an equivalent fraction. So 4 times 5 is going to give me a numerator of 20. Same thing here. If I've got 1/4 and I'm trying to build it with a denominator of 24, ask yourself, what did I multiply by to go from 4 to 24? Well, I'm multiplying by 6. So if I do 1 times 6 in my numerator, 1 times 6 gives me 6. So my equivalent fraction would be 6/24. Take a couple of minutes and try these on your own, and when you're ready, hit play to check your answer. So let's take a look at this one here. 36/90. Again, there's multiple starting points here, but one starting point is divide both the numerator and denominator by 6. You could have maybe started by dividing them both by 3. Again, your starting point doesn't matter as long as you're dividing them by the same number. 36 divided by 6 gives me 6. 90 divided by 6 is going to give me 15. Now, are we finished? No, we're not, because both of these are divisible by 3. So 6 divided by 3 gives me 2. 15 divided by 3 gives me 5. Can I divide 2 and 5 by the same number and divide it evenly? No, you can't. So then I'm done. A starting point here could be 2, but another starting point here would be dividing them both by 11. 44 divided by 11 gives me 4. 66 divided by 11 gives me 6. I'm not quite finished. These are both divisible by 2. 4 divided by 2 gives me 2. 6 divided by 2 gives me 3. If I rewrite 2/3 with a denominator of 9, I am multiplying by 3 to go from 3 times 3 would give me 9. So I need to multiply by 3 here as well. 2 times 3 would give me a new fraction of 6/9. 9/20, if I want a new denominator of 100, I am multiplying here by 5 in order to get to 100. So I need to do 9 times 5 as well, which is going to give me a new numerator of 45. Now let's talk about how to go from improper fractions to mixed numbers. So 7/3 is considered an improper fraction. Anytime your numerator is larger than your denominator, it's considered improper. Think about what a fraction means. It means part of something out of the whole thing. Well, it's improper to have 7 pieces out of 3. So we know we have some whole numbers in there. So numerator bigger than denominator is considered quote unquote bad in math. So we change it to a mixed number by using division. A lot of students get confused, like how do I rewrite this as a division problem? Imagine that your fraction, I always come up with silly ways to do things. So imagine your fraction kind of laid down and take a nap. So if you take 7/3 and you're like, okay, lay down and take a nap here. We're going to do 3 goes into 7, and notice what they're doing down here at the bottom. 3 goes into 7 2 times, so 3 times 2 would give me 6. Remember how you do long division is once you do 3 times 2 to give you 6, you subtract to get your remainder. So where do all these 3 pieces go in terms of your mixed number? 2 is your whole number, so it's going to go out front. Your remainder is the numerator of your fraction, and your denominator stays the same as the original problem. So my denominator stays a 3. Now, how do we go the other way? So how do we change mixed numbers into improper fractions? So we basically do the reverse. We do our denominator times our whole number. So 3 times 4 gives me 12. Our next step is to take that number and add my numerator to it. So 4 times 3 gives me 12, plus 2 gives me a new numerator of 14. And then my denominator again stays the same as the original problem. So let's take a look at some examples. I'm taking this ugly improper fraction. I want to write it as a mixed number. So again, numerator bigger than the denominator is bad. Lay down your fraction, make it take a nap. So if I lay down 23/10, I'm going to say how many times does 10 go into 23? Well, 10 times 2 gets me close. 10 times 2 gives me 20. I'm going to subtract to get my remainder of 3. So where do all my pieces go? 2 is my whole number. My remainder is my numerator. My denominator stays the same as the original problem. So I have a new fraction of 2 3/10. Write each mixed number as an improper fraction. So can we go the opposite way? So remember what happens here. We're going to multiply my denominator and my whole number. Multiply them together. So 3 times 3 gives me 9. And then I'm going to take that 9 and I'm going to add 2 to it. So 3 times 3 gives me 9. 9 plus 2 is going to give me 11. That's my new numerator. My denominator stays the same. So again, it kind of forms this circle. Multiply these two and then add my numerator in order to get my new numerator here. Pause the video and try some of these on your own. When you're ready, hit play to check your answer. So let's lay this fraction down here. I want to know how many times does 6 go into 75? It goes in there 12 whole times. Now 6 times 12 is going to give me 72. I'm going to subtract to get my remainder, which is going to be 3. So my whole number is going to be 12. 3 is going to become my numerator, and my denominator stays the same as the problem. So 12 3/6. Now, you do always want to reduce if you're able to. So can 3/6 be reduced? Yes, it can. Both of those are divisible by 3. So 3 goes into 3 one time, 3 goes into 6 two times. So my final answer would be 12 1/2. So looking at the second one down here, we're going to do, remember we're going to multiply my denominator and the whole number together. So 11 times 7 is going to give me 77. So I'll multiply those and get 77. And then I'm going to add the 9 onto it. So 77 plus 9 is going to give me 86. And my denominator is going to stay the same. Do keep in mind, if you use your fraction key like I taught you a while ago in your calculator, your calculator will change improper fractions to mixed numbers by using that fraction key. Now let's talk about let's talk about multiplying fractions, and let's talk about dividing fractions. Now, to multiply two fractions together, as long as they are written either as improper fractions or regular fractions, all you do is multiply both straight across. So notice I'm multiplying the 2 times 3 to give me 6, and I'm multiplying the 5 times 4 to give me 20. You always want to reduce your answer if you're able to. Now with division, it's the same concept, but one part you have to be very careful with is the fraction that comes after the division sign. You want to flip that fraction and multiply by what we call the reciprocal. So what this happens is the 4/5 stays the same. We change it to multiplication and we flip the second fraction to be 3/2. Then we multiply straight across just as we did a while ago.